welcome to episode 40. I can't believe we made it to 40. This is incredible. Just want to welcome you to episode 40 of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. I am your host and painter, as usual, Jason Azevedo. So glad for you guys to be here to join us. What you see in front of you is a whole lot of terrain for our premiere of Tides of Wildmount tomorrow night. But before we get into that, I want to thank all of our sponsors. First of all, of course, D&D for hosting us on their channel as usual. They are an incredible group of folks over there who really have made it possible for us to do what we're doing on their channel and all of that stuff. So I want to thank D&D for that. I want to also thank Vallejo, our title sponsor, for sponsoring us and helping us to make this even possible. With their help, we wouldn't be able to. Without their help, we wouldn't be able to. And of course, WizKids for giving us these incredible miniatures that we're going to paint. We are painting tonight the long-awaited, sought-after Red Dragon. This is the young Red Dragon from the Nolzur's Marvelous Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures line from WizKids. And we're going to jump into that in just a second. Couple quick announcements. First off, tomorrow night we are airing our premiere of Tides of Wildmount. Last weekend, we had Matt Mercer and Matt Lillard and James Hake and B. Dave Walters and Nora Ibrahim and who am I missing? And Luke Gygax all join us for and a couple of our guys join us for the prologue to Tides of Wildmount, which we will be premiering tonight on YouTube for the first time. It was on live on Twitch last weekend. We're premiering it on YouTube tonight at 7 p.m. so that you guys can all watch. We'll be in the chat. But that is basically a little bit of a prologue just to set the scene for tomorrow night's premiere. We're super stoked about it. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to obviously say hello to Jack's Not Funny and DC Lasser, who are the D&D moderators for tonight, and they are in the chat. I am also on the chat, and I'm watching it. If you like what you see tonight, make sure that you follow and subscribe on the D&D channel, as well as on RealmSmith, which is twitch.tv/RealmSmith. And if you follow us or subscribe, this little potion bottle behind me does all kinds of fun things, like you just saw it flash purple once. That means that somebody followed us. So thank you for your follows. Thank you for your support. And obviously want to thank you all for making us your preferred way to spend the apocalypse this Sunday evening. I know it's crazy out there, folks, and I hope everyone is staying safe and is ready for some painting. Hopefully, you've also had some time to do painting of your own over the last little while. I know a lot of people are still working from home. It gets even crazy with kids. So first I want to say, how is everyone doing at home? How is everyone faring in this time? I want to hear how you're spending your time and how you're passing the time at home, and whatever questions you have, I'm willing to answer them. They don't have to necessarily be about what we're doing tonight. They can also be about RealmSmith in general or what we're up to. But like I said, tomorrow night, Tides of Wildmount is our new campaign we're starting. We're going to be doing that for 3 months. That's 12 episodes, and then we will come back to the Curse of Strahd campaign, which is called Into the Mist, in kind of midsummer, and it'll take us to Halloween for another 12 or so episodes. So we're super pumped for all that. Make sure that you join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and that is both on the twitch.tv/D&D and twitch.tv/RealmSmith, which we are so stinking pumped. Mr. Blonde says, knocking out a zombie horde right now. Physically, because it is the apocalypse, that might be happening. But I'm assuming you mean that you are painting a zombie horde. So hopefully that is more the case, because that is much safer than actually knocking out or trying to knock out a zombie horde. Still working, considered essential. Friday night gaming for Fantasy Grounds and building up armies for multiple games. That is Lunchbox7979. Awesome to hear. That's a great way to spend the time. I have done lots of painting and lots of building and lots of prep for our upcoming campaign, which we're really excited about. If you're interested, we have merch for Into the Mist. We will be adding merch to Tides of Wildmount. You can find that in the Twitch below the video if you want to check that out. And that's a way to help us out through this kind of tough time that we're going through. We had an incredible weekend last weekend. We streamed virtual GaryCon. We did 2 episodes of Into the Mist and 1 episode of Tides of Wildmount for the prologue, as well as a Cyberpunk game that we did, which was a lot of fun. You can check all of those out on our YouTubes and on our Twitch. Make sure that you do that. Also want to thank Sirenscape, because we like to play them while we paint. Right now we are using the Red Dragon Underground, so we are now kind of approaching the Red Dragon layer underground, and that's just helps me to kind of get me into the mood and into the mindset to paint this awesome, incredible Red Dragon. All right. Also, if you're interested in our adventure boxes, we have monthly adventure boxes that we send to your home. They have everything that you need to run a campaign, including miniatures and terrain and candles and sound sets and all this crazy stuff in it. Incredible value, and you can subscribe for $20 off using the promo code IWantAdventure. You'll get $20 off your first box. And you can check that out at. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you, Igdo Zelda, for subscribing. And yeah, having Matt Lillard and Matt Mercer on our stream last weekend was unbelievable. Love to field any questions you guys have about that. Okay, I think we are ready to jump in. You guys ready? Very excited. First of all, we will need the D&D Young Dragon miniature by WizKids. This is a long-awaited, awesome mini. I can't wait. Vallejo brushes. I'm using a 0, a 1, and a 2. I'm also using a Vallejo dry brush. Obviously, you need some water for washing your brushes, as well as dilating your paint, paper towel for dry brushing and cleaning your brushes, and of course a palette for mixing paint and for holding your paint. For a paint list, just a short one today. We've got the heavy red, black wash, and bloody red for the scales, and then a highlight on those scales with orange fire. We have heavy ochre, bone white, and sepia wash for kind of the underbelly and all of the horns and such. And then we also have pale yellow for the eyes. That's what we'll be using for that. And then heavy blue for the base, black for the claws and some of the spikes. All right, jumping right in. Oh, I feel like it's been forever since I did one. I missed 1 week, folks. It was my birthday last Sunday. We were supposed to do this last Sunday at GaryCon, and GaryCon didn't happen. And then we were supposed to, and I just decided, because it was the first time I got to see my kids in 3 weeks, because I was in self-isolation due to travel. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to spend my birthday with my kids that night, and so we held off until today. But yeah, sadly my shop doesn't have the new line yet. Hopefully it's on order, and hopefully you'll get it soon. Dutch Lander. If you guys have a question, make sure that you write question and then the question after it in the chat. Try and use caps for the word question so that I can see it while it's kind of going by here while I'm trying to paint. I'm painting question. I'm painting Gargantuan red today. Any major shade changes? No. Excuse me. I would say you can use the exact same color scheme we're using tonight, but I would read up on the entry in the monster manual. And the reason I say that is because there are differences between the young red dragons and some of the older some of the young dragons and some of the older dragons. I'm just going to clean my lens here. With the coloration and the way that the color kind of is affected as they age. So take a look at that, see if that gives you any inspiration as to where to go. But absolutely, thank you. Absolutely, you can use the same color scheme for your large one. All right, I don't see any questions just yet, so I'm going to continue to go through, and we're going to do this. We are not live on Facebook. Facebook chat is really weird, and we've decided to kind of focus on Twitch as our platform of choice because of many reasons. So hopefully you folks who aren't seeing us on Facebook are here on Twitch to enjoy this with us today. Starting off, we're going to use heavy red. Heavy red is a extra opaque paint from Vallejo. Put some in the palette here, and then I'm going to use a large brush. I'm going to use one like this. Just goes a lot faster when you're base coating stuff. Let's see what else we've got from Sirenscape here. Listen to this red dragon roar. It's not nice. They've also got like a claw scratch, distant growl, red dragon growl. Oh, that's so good. Tumbling rocks. I love it. You know what? We're going to just go back to the caves a little bit. We're still just kind of, we heard a distant dragon, but we're just gonna traversing the cave right now. We know there's a dragon ahead, but we're gonna take it easy. We're just gonna slow her down a little bit. All right. I do dilute my paint a little bit, but the extra opaque paints are awesome because they basically go onto the Mini in one coat. That is the beauty of the Vallejo extra opaque paints. And I'm just gonna go through with heavy red and give it a really solid base coat. We're basically gonna base coat it all, basically, see what I did there? With heavy red. And except you don't have to do the belly. You want to get close enough so that you don't have any gaps, because we are going to use heavy ochre later, and that will cover up the red. Because it's a heavy opaque paint, not pink. It will go over the red nicely, but we just want to make sure that the coverage is good. So if you go over the belly area a little bit, that's fine. But basically the whole dragon gets a base coat with this awesome extra opaque paint. It's nice to see so many people on here today. It's very busy. I like it a lot. Tons of people watching. Tons and tons. Wonderful. All right. On both channels, it's great. We had awesome viewership on the weekend. Watching all of us play with all of our wonderful friends, which again is still a bit of a mind blown kind of moment for me this past weekend, to be able to play with some of my mentors and the people I really look up to in the industry, and to DM Matt Mercer in his own world was something else. Let me tell you, it was something else. I guess the silver lining for RealmSmith and for me in this difficult time is that, there are folks out there who look forward to live streams, and we're able to, take this time, though difficult and horrible for some, to entertain you folks while you're at home, kind of biding your time and hoping that this thing kind of passes as quickly as possible. Hopefully we flatten the curve a little bit and are able to come out on the other side of this thing soon. That would be really great right across the world. Yes, Docrimbo asks, hey all, is this the Young Red? Yes it is. Excited to get started on Wave 11. Thinking of doing the Behir tomorrow. Definitely do the Behir. We didn't do a tutorial for that yet, but we probably should. All right. Have any of you guys already painted this Young Red Dragon? I'd love to know if anybody has gotten your hands on it already. It was supposed to come out last month. I don't know if there's been any delays with shipping and such because of the state of the world, but let me know if you already have your hands on a Young Red Dragon, and if so, have you already painted it? The nice thing about the Tides of Wildemount campaign setting is it is just a world book, so even though it takes more work to kind of write my own adventure, unlike Curse of Strahd, which for those of you that have watched it, know I've taken my creative licenses with, I get to write all my own content. So who knows if maybe there's a red dragon that shows up at some point. That'd be cool. Question, would you recommend GW contrast paints for these minis? GW contrast paints are actually really, really great paints. But they serve a purpose, and that purpose is to get paint onto minis quickly. They are great, and they would work on this. I use the Vallejo brand just because that's my preferred brand, has been for years. Just quality, the dropper bottles. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I prefer Vallejo, but absolutely, if it's something that you want to try, You are the boss of your mini. I'm not sure if you would have the same saturation. I mean, they're great that way, but I just prefer a different kind of look for the way that my minis end up looking painted. So I prefer old school paint over the contrasts for this application. Question. So Wildmount will be the campaign on RealmSmith here on out. Yes, Patron. Wildmount will be the campaign starting Monday, starting tomorrow, for the next 3 months. And then after that, we will go back to Curse of Strahd in June, July. I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but yes, we will be back with Curse of Strahd for another season, for season 2, coming mid to late summer. So June, July is the plan. So the Wildmount campaign will basically last us now until summer, midsummer. And it was kind of bittersweet for me because it's such an honor. I'm a huge Critical Role fan and a huge fan of everything that they do, and Matt's written an incredible world that I'm so psyched and pumped to play in that arena and to play in his world and all the things that he's created. But at the same time, I'm also very excited. It was kind of bittersweet because I really got kind of attached to Curse of Strahd again, or the Ravenloft setting again, since I haven't played Ravenloft since I was a teenager, and so coming back to it was incredible, and I'm gonna miss it a little bit, but we'll be back, and it's nice to break up all of that gloom and doom and evil with something a bit more lighthearted. It's definitely going to be more kind of a seafaring adventure campaign across the Menagerie Coast. So it'll definitely have a different feel than our Into the Mist Curse of Strahd campaign did. But we will be back. I promise you that. And I know you guys have all kind of fallen in love with the characters, and the characters that we have now, we've been announcing them all week. If you go to our Instagram, it's RealmSmith TV, at RealmSmith TV. On Instagram, we've been releasing character art and announcing the actors who will be playing them and who our cast is. There's one left that we have to announce tonight, and then you will know who the whole cast will be. I will be DMing again. And we have Joel returning, who played Fulfer in Into the Mist. Joel's returning, and he will be playing the Kenku Bard that appeared in the prologue. That's going to be fun and challenging for Joel. Kenkus are a very challenging creature to play. So he will be playing Plunkrock, is his name. Plunkrock, the Kenku Bard. And he actually rolled him up on our Behind the Screen show a couple weeks ago while I was away. And you guys helped him kind of pick a name and pick all of that fun stuff. So that was cool. We have Brandon returning for this season, this campaign, as Bacalhau, which is a little funny story there. But I'll let those folks in the chat, if you know what that means in my native tongue, you can say that out, but a little funny kind of inside joke there for that. But he will be playing. He is a turtle wizard, which will be a lot of fun, and that's David Morin. What am I saying? Brandon Perkins will be playing Snow, the blind tabaxi fighter. Sorry, I apologize. I crossed the streams there for a second, and he will be back in that role. And he was also featured fairly heavily in the prologue and was part of the crew aboard the Wave Chaser. And then David Morin, not Shaheen, David Morin will be returning after he was last seen in our Sentinels of the Storm campaign. So some of our older campaigns, he had played a couple different characters. and he will be now joining us again as part of RealmSmith in the role of Bacalhau, the Tortle Wizard. That's going to be a blast. Turtles are always fun. He has a really cool character concept for him, which I'm really excited to kind of explore. We have Melanie joining us again, and instead of Callie, she will be playing Ayala, or Isla, not Ayala, Isla, the Air Genasi Druid, which will be great. And then Adam will be joining us. I think that's 5 so far, right? Adam will be joining us as Bolt, the Dragonborn Artificer. No humans yet in our cast of crazy characters. And we have one more character who will be playing a Halfling Paladin that I will be announcing tonight. Brand new cast member. And we're very excited to have her join us. So stay tuned on our Instagram and on our Facebook and Twitter. We're at RealmSmith on all those platforms. And you can get the inside scoop when we announce the final cast member this evening, so you can check that out. I am not paying attention to questions, folks. I apologize. The ship encountered in Wildmount, who were those people? Why did they smell like sulfur? Good question, and that is a question, Patron, for Behind the Screen. On Tuesday. On Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, we do a little show called Behind the Screen, where you guys get a chance to basically have a Q&A with myself regarding all of the whatever happened on RealmSmith that week. You can ask me questions, and it's a little spoilerific, so thank you for the follow. It's a little spoilerific, so I don't want to talk about it here, because there are people out there who are looking to play Wildmount. But if you want kind of a behind-the-scene look, all you DMs out there who kind of want to know what I do behind my DM screen and why I did certain things, another follow, thank you. Why I do what I do, and why we kind of took certain approaches and who those people were above that ship. Tune in on Tuesday. I will answer that question then, Patron. You're sneaky, sir, trying to get in here with a question. I'm just kidding. It's all good. Ask away. But yeah, I will reveal that on Tuesday night and in Behind the Screen. It's a better kind of forum for that. I am almost done this red here, folks. It's going on nice and solid. You can see how really solid these extra opaque paints are. Don't see any white spots yet, which is new for me. But I'm just going to finish this wing, and then we are good to go. We also have a new sponsor we'll be announcing soon. Sirenscape will be returning in the title sponsor spot for Tides of Wildmount. They were our title sponsor for Into the Mist, and they're just great friends and partners of ours. Let me just go up here and see if there's any questions. What undead dragon mini do you recommend? That's a great question. I actually don't know of any undead. I know there are none in the Nolzur's line. That's a good question. If anybody in the chat has any suggestions on an undead dragon mini, please speak up. That is in the D&D Twitch. Let me see if there's any other questions. Again, folks, write question ahead of time because I'm just skimming for that word question. If I haven't answered one of your questions, please... Patron says, will you introduce a dragon into the campaign? I think it's safe to say that at some point during Wildmount campaign, at some point somewhere, there will be a dragon. I mean, we have a dragonborn, so does that count? But yeah, I mean, at some point, I'm sure you can't have a hard time, unless it's Curse of Strahd, I have a hard time playing Dungeons & Dragons without at least one dragon at some point. So I'm sure you can look forward to seeing a dragon in that campaign at some point, for sure. Any more questions here? Thank you for the subscriptions, Sidifar. Welcome. Question, any idea how many militia were used? Glynis asked. I don't know yet. I need to find out because it's interesting, but we had hundreds and hundreds No, I would say probably definitely thousands of bits spent. So for those of you that didn't watch our finale for Into the Mist, basically the viewers could play as the militia to help our party against a threat. It was a zombie horde in the finale, and for every 100 bits that they spent in our chat, it was an arrow shot at this horde of zombies, and they just volley after volley. You guys were incredible, did an awesome job, and that's just kind of our way to allow you guys to kind of help us out with what we do here, because this takes resources to do this, and so we really appreciate that. But instead of just kind of taking donations or whatever, we wanted to give something back as well. So that was our opportunity to kind of, for you folks to play alongside the characters, and it was so fun. And you guys sent hundreds and hundreds of volleys, hundreds and hundreds of arrows at the enemy, which was a lot of fun. Okay, so that is the red base coat. I'm going to let that dry for a sec, and then I'm going to use a black wash on that to bring in some shadow. That's kind of the next step after this. And then we'll do some dry brushing and all kinds of cool stuff. Just washing my brush a little bit here. Actually, while that's drying, maybe I'll start on the base, because why not? Any thoughts on partnering with a company like Miniature Market? Good question, Glenix. We know of the guys at Miniature Market. We've never approached them for partnerships. They're cool folks, I've been told, and we have partners that are partners of theirs. And so, yeah, I mean, who knows? There's lots of partnership opportunities in this industry, in this community, and you just never know. You never know who we'll be working with and at what point. Dwarven Forge is also joining us for Season 2 as a terrain sponsor. And Mythroll, actually, armories, which make those cool dice spinners that everybody kind of freaked out about when they saw in our stream. This bottle's giving me a hard time. You can see that this never has happened to me before, but I guess, it's an older bottle. You can see how much I've used it. I'm closer to the end of it. And the nozzle has kind of stuck inside the cap here. I've never had this happen, but it's almost out. Yeah. So Mythroll Armories, who make these awesome alternative dice spinners. Thank you for the subscriptions. Holy cow. That was a bunch. And hang on one sec. Just going to do this because it'll just come out if I just help it a little bit. This thing does not want to let go. I must have kind of gobbed it up and not cleaned out cleaned off the nozzle as much as I should have when I put the thing back on. Anyways, I can just pour the paint out. It's fine. I don't really need the dropper tip. There we go. I will address that later. Okay, so this is heavy blue gray. It's an extra opaque paint. Hard to see the label there a little bit, but basically I'm going to use that for the base. I'm being careful, though. I do not want to touch the clear plastic stem that holds the dragon aloft. Lots of questions here. Question, any thoughts about a RealmSmith Wildmount box set? Well, we don't have the license to Wildmount. We're in partnership with D&D. But you never know in the future. Let's see here. There's another one here. So much chatter on the chat today. It's awesome. Hi, Jason. How are you? I'm the guy that keeps asking you for the Remorhaz tutorial. Looking forward to see it as a Vado style. And I've just finished the young bronze dragon using your tutorial, and it is amazing. Stay safe. Thanks, Korgik 88. Yes, young Remorhaz. I painted one. I recorded a tutorial, like a pre-recorded tutorial for it. And then never finished it, unfortunately. Just other things got in the way, and so maybe I will release that at some point. It still needs to be edited and such, or I'll just do a live one for the Remorhaz at some point. I apologize for that. Hopefully, it's kind of still in the backlog list, so hopefully we can do that for you at some point in the future. Any thoughts on this partnering with a company like Miniature Market? Oh, yeah. Already answered that. Do you know if there are any gem dragons in the pipeline? Oh, good question, Kyburn. WizKids released a Sapphire Dragon. It's a pre-painted version. At Gamma trade show that I was at. If you look it up online, you'll probably find photos of it. Maybe I'll post a photo as well. I think I took one. But they have a gargantuan or an adult. Can't remember what size it is, but it's either an adult or a gargantuan Sapphire Dragon that they are releasing. I think it's Sapphire. Sapphire's blue, right? Yeah, they're releasing that. Looks amazing, and who knows? Sometimes they often do a unpainted when they have a pre-painted, and if you guys ask for it, maybe they'll consider it, or I'll tell them that people are asking for it. But there are some gem dragons I've seen out in the wild. Okay, this is almost done, not quite dry yet, and I don't want to put the wash on until it's totally dry. So let's just give that a minute and answer some questions here. Yeah, you guys are bringing Sakura gifting all these subs. Thank you so much. So nice, man. Every week. So great. Awesome. Now, I mean, we're at the end of March. This is episode 40. So I guess my question to everyone is, are there any minis that are part of either the new lines or that you haven't seen us do yet that you would like us to do in the next month? April is open for the most part. I don't have any plans yet. So if you folks have any ideas for minis you'd like to see us do, please let us know. And yes, we also have a Discord server. Thanks, DC Lister, so great at this stuff. We do have a Discord server, folks, and the link is on the D&D chat right now. Somebody can maybe link it over to the RealmSmith one as well, but thank you, DC Lister, for pushing people that way. That's great. Sakura says, just spreading the love. Means a lot in these times, Sakura. Means a heck of a lot right now. Patron says, how will you involve us viewers in the campaign next time? A good question. Stay tuned. We have lots of ideas. We have all kinds of ideas, folks. Some will come to fruition, some may not, but we have lots of ideas. I am going to do a little story time with RealmSmith, as we do when we're waiting for certain things to dry. Let's take a look here for the young, for the dragon, young red dragon. Okay, Adam says the death dog. We did the zombie beholder already, Roarin. You can check that out on our YouTube or on the YouTube channel or on the D&D YouTube channel. Fire giant, I did. I've been waiting to get one from WizKids. It's just in the backlog. So I know Tam Good says Drider. I know I keep saying I'm going to be doing a Drider, and I promise we will at some point. But the ship got in the way. We did the Falling Star, which you can see the mast of in the corner there. Why every time I don't yawn, and then thank you for the follow, guys. Don't yawn, and then all of a sudden I get on these streams, and for some reason, maybe it's the air down here. I don't know. There's the ancient red dragon. You can see how it's pretty much all red. But if we go to the young red dragon, often gives us kind of a now red dragons are obviously one of the most kind of iconic for D&D. That's the green dragon. Red dragon's right here. The most covetous of the true dragons, red dragons tirelessly seek to increase their treasure hoards. They are exceptionally vain, even for dragons, and their conceit is reflected in their proud bearing, thank you for the follow, and their disdain for other creatures. The odor of sulfur and pumice surrounds a red dragon, whose swept-back horns and spinal frill define its silhouette. Its beaked snout vents smoke at all times, and its eyes dance with flame when it's angry. Its wings are the longest of any chromatic dragon and have a blue-black tint along the trailing edge that resembles metal burned blue by fire. Very cool, which we will be adding to this dragon here. The scales of a red dragon wormling are a bright, glossy scarlet, turning a dull, deeper red and becoming as thick and strong as metal as the dragon ages. Its pupils also fade as it ages, and the oldest red dragons have eyes that resemble molten lava orbs. So that's kind of a bit of what we kind of went for already. I already painted a red dragon, actually. You can see this one here when I first got a prototype from WizKids. So this will be my second one I'll be painting. Okay, all done. Black wash, here we go. Now, as is typical for us with the black wash, we're just going to put a bunch in our palette. We are going to add some water to it just to dilute it slightly. And for those of you that are new to painting and don't necessarily know what a wash does, a wash provides shadow and depth by when you brush it on like this, it seeps into the recesses so that you get dark, kind of a darker color in the deepest recesses, so that it adds the illusion of, not the illusion of depth, it just uses the existing texture of the dragon miniature to kind of accentuate those shadows. You can see how magical that is. Right away, you're starting to see some more depth, and this also really brings out the texture and the detail on the dragon. We're just going to go around, and I'm not really brushing it on necessarily. I'm putting it on the miniature, and then I'm manipulating it by pulling it kind of into the areas where I want to. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the follow. Wow, lots of follows tonight. Pulling it into the recesses where I want the shadow to live. That was a little Bob Ross there. Do shadows live? Happy little shadows here around its head. Okay. What will you, D. Nicole 32 says, what will you do for a mini for the person playing the turtle, or is it being custom made? For right now, we will be using one of WizKids' turtles. I was going to use the one I painted a while ago. I painted one at PAX, but I've decided instead to use the pre-painted turtle miniature by WizKids because Bacalhau does not like to wear clothes. So he's a lot more kind of a naturalist turtle. And so we are going to use that one instead for now. There is plans for something in the near future which I will be able to announce tomorrow night for the miniatures. But yeah, for right now, we will be using the pre-painted WizKids turtle miniature. It's actually at the end of the table over there. You can't see it right now on camera, but it's all set for tomorrow night. I'm so freaking pumped for tomorrow night's session. It's just gonna feel really good to play again. And I love new campaigns. I love introducing new characters. I love when players explore their new characters and learn about them, and it's just awesome. And there's some really amazing character concepts. This concept that Brandon has for his Tabaxi is unreal. So amazing. And of course, Brandon, who in Into the Mist, our Crystal Straw campaign, played a 11-year-old boy trapped in a Warforged body. That was his character concept, and it was challenging and fun, and it was awesome to play with as a DM, and the other characters really dug it, or other players really dug it, I should say. And so this time he is playing a blind Tabaxi fighter. And this is a spoiler warning for those of you that have not seen the prologue for Wildmount. Just tune out for 2 seconds, maybe mute real quick. But you found out in the prologue that he was told by somebody who studied Dunamancy, who was an Echo Knight, that eventually, maybe one day, that she would teach him what he needs to know in order to be able to maybe see again through one of his echoes. So for those of you that don't know what an Echo Knight is, you can check out the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. But basically, it's your ability to project yourself, and it's an alternate version of yourself, an alternate reality version of yourself that never really came to be, and you're pulling that echo from another timeline. And in this case, the idea is that maybe it's a timeline in which he could actually see. Is a really cool concept. And so I remember we said that, and we've kind of played through that roleplay moment where she offered that, and the look on Matt Mercer's face when we said, he was like, ooh, was just really cool. James Hake too, who wrote the adventure that we're starting with for the campaign. So, and he played on Saturday as well. Anyways, all very cool, awesome stuff. So fun. Amero Blade, aka Zenrender, says, "Are you able to move the main camera to show the color palette and paint more? Your hand and wrist isn't that interesting." Oh, well, thank you. I think my wrist and hand are very interesting, but I can absolutely... There you go. That is my palette. It is a disaster. It's a mess. I use it a lot, and I paint a lot. And I could use a new palette all the time or whatever, but I just prefer to kind of have it there. I'm also going to put a black wash onto the base here as well while we're waiting for the black wash to dry on the dragon. Always takes a while for these washes to dry, so we find ways to kind of maximize that time in between as we're kind of waiting here. I am going to put a little bit more black wash down in there. I also not really waiting long enough between my base coats here and my washes, because you can see in some areas, like in the back here, I've actually kind of pulled up the color, the red on his back in between the wings there. Not too worried about it right now, but it wasn't quite dry yet. So when I put the wash in there, kind of messed it up a little bit, but that's okay. Pyro the Rogue says, "So I am new here, and I have a question for anyone who wants to answer. Does this nice guy work for WizKids? I got here somehow while trying to dive into D&D lore." Hey Pyro, thank you for calling me a nice guy first. I appreciate that. I do not work for WizKids. WizKids is one of our partners and a sponsor. and they help us. They send us the awesome minis that we use for this show. But I am not a WizKids employee, but we use all of their stuff, or a lot of their stuff, in our streams and in this painting show as well. And they're just really great friends and good people. So, no, I do not work for WizKids, but we have a partnership with them on a number of different initiatives, including, which I haven't talked about yet today, the new WizKids paint line by Vallejo, which will be released later this year, which is super exciting. So keep an eye out for that as well. What mini paint job are you most proud of? Mr. Blonde says. I really, really loved, I keep going back to this. I did a Beholder. It's a 4-part series that looks like the Beholder on the Monster, cover of the Monster Manual. It's got like lightning blue behind it, and it's got fire light in the front. You guys can check that out on our YouTube channel. But that is still my favorite paint job. I took lots of extra time. Probably second to that is the Frost Giant that is modeled after Harshnag from Storm King's Thunder. And we also did like a 3-part series on this show for that one as well. And that is another one of my favorites. Those are my 2 favorites, I'd say. Okay, this is going to take a second because washes do that. So we're just going to wait for that to dry. I don't have my... Let me see if I have my little fan here. It keeps disappearing. I don't see it. I just totally messed up my camera there. Thought I had it. Oh well. Sorry guys, we're just gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. For those of you that have been watching us for a while, you remember me doing this. The most manly way to dry a miniature. You're very welcome, Pyro. I've been tuning in. D. Nicole says, I've been tuning in the past couple of months. Jason, have you ever been a PC instead of a DM? Yes, I have. So I PC'd in our Order of Dragon's Bane live stream, which you can find most of on our YouTube page. And what you can't find on our YouTube page, you can find on our Facebook page. We're in the midst of uploading all the old episodes to YouTube. But I was a player in that campaign, and I was also I've been a player on a number of live streams where I guested at shows and stuff that you can catch online as well. Question: in Red Dragon's lair, how much gold and jewels would there be? Let's just say a young dragon. That's a great question. You know what? Let's see if the Monster Manual entry has anything to say about that. But speaking of the Red Dragon's lair, we're approaching deeper into this cavern where this red dragon exists. So let's just up the ante in Sirenscape right now. I hear it. All right. Let's get back to the red dragon here. Probably shouldn't have closed my... Bruno the Tavern Dog is just going nuts up there. Red dragons value wealth above all else, and their treasure hoards are legendary. They covet anything of monetary value and can often judge the worth of a bauble to within a copper piece at a glance. A red dragon has a special affection for treasure claimed from powerful enemies it has slain, exhibiting that treasure to prove its superiority. A red dragon knows the value of and provenance of every item in its hoard, along with each item's exact location. It might notice the absence of a single coin, igniting its rage as it tracks down and slays the thief without mercy. If the thief can't be found, the dragon goes on a rampage, laying waste to towns and villages in an attempt to sate its wrath. Sate its wrath. Now, that's a good question. I don't know. Does anybody know out there if there is like a horde table, a dragon horde table? I imagine in the Dungeon Master Guide there is. I've never had to myself calculate how much a dragon horde, like a dragon would have in its horde. Don't think it's in here either. But that is a great question. Really great question. Maybe if somebody knows, they can link it. Weren't you going to do a painting tutorial, GaryCon? Yes, I was, Genesis. It was going to be this one. It was going to be the Red Dragon, the Young Red Dragon tutorial, but unfortunately, GaryCon was canceled, and so we're doing it today instead of last Sunday live at the show. I don't see it. Dragons. It talks about the categories here. Its age and size. So a young dragon is from 6 to 100 years old. But that's it. So yeah, if anybody knows if there's anywhere that kind of puts a number to that, that would be really great to know. For your Monday stream, what does your technology setup look like equipment-wise? Prometheus Bound asks. Hey, Prometheus Bound, and I think you've been trying to get this answered for a little while, and I apologize that we haven't answered that yet. Currently, we're running Mimo Live, which is our streaming software with Zoom, actually, to get everybody in. And then we're doing a bit of a hack where we're kind of taking the windows and putting them where they need to be in the template for now. That's our solution until this whole thing kind of is over. That is what our plan is, anyways, for the next little while. Because of this wash is taking a little while, I'm just going to step out here and grab my fan if I can find it. One sec. But yeah, that is the streaming setup we use. It's just Mimo Live and Zoom. Zoom being kind of the most stable platform right now for live streaming. And it's being used a lot these days. I can't find my... Oh, there it is. There's my fan, my biggest fan. See what I did there? Sorry, bad dad jokes. I'm allowed, right? I think bad dad jokes are allowed in quarantine because it kind of just helps you get through any humor at all. Let's turn the heat on a bit. I have a fireplace here. There we go. That's going to go faster. Glad I did that. Genesis says I was supposed to play Call of Cthulhu with Joe Manganiello on Thursday at GaryCon. That's too bad, eh? Yeah, it would have been... So everything that we had planned, or that we did, and the people that were going to play... Actually, let me say this. The Matt Mercer Strahd appearance was supposed to happen at GaryCon Live. That would have been incredible. And all those guys were supposed to play at GaryCon with us. James Hake... wasn't going to GaryCon, so he got to join us. B. Dave got to join us. He wasn't going to be at GaryCon. So there are some silver linings for not having streamed at GaryCon, and that is basically that we got to play with people who we wouldn't have been able to play with there because they weren't going to be there. And so that's kind of a bonus for us that we got to still have some of those folks play with us remotely. So that, and also Matt Lillard, actually, because he was only going to come for part of the show, I think. And so the fact that we were able to get him to play with us live is pretty huge for us. And he played 15 hours of role-playing games that weekend with us, which is crazy. Does your fan have antlers? Yes, it has fantlers. I got it in some shop somewhere, and it's louder than it used to be. A lot louder, actually. So I apologize for that. Your streams were awesome, though, Genesis says. I still played online and met some cool people. That's awesome. And yes, Lillard is a beast. Question, any insights if WizKids is going to do any larger or in-between sized dragons? They did the young dragons the size of adults, so I'm kind of hoping there's going to be more sizes in the future. I have heard some rumors that might happen. I don't know for sure. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait to find out. But knowing WizKids, they're nuts like that. I would be surprised if they end up doing some adult or gargantuan stuff, but I'm not sure. There's no official word on that. And I know you said that these are adult size. I don't think they are, actually. I think that these are actually young dragon size. If you think about what the book says about the size of dragons, that these are actually probably about the size of a young dragon. The bases aren't, just because of stability on the table. So the bases should be a large base, but if you actually look at the size of these, they actually make sense. That was for Aramil. I found a really good small fan online, Jason. The brand is okay. Jax, can you send that to me in a DM on Facebook or something? That'd be really great. Please. I see some conversation about inks here. Was there a question about inks? If there was, if you guys could just post it for me. I may have missed it higher up. Almost dry. These little fans are great for drying minis nice and fast. But you can see how that has darkened it up. You can see it's gone into all the recesses and really brought out that texture. Almost done here. And then once this is done, we're gonna go ahead and start to dry brush this bad boy. Or bad girl, haven't decided yet. Okay. I think she's dry enough. Or at least nearing dry enough. Yeah, okay. First dry brush, we are going to use a bloody red. Now we're going to dry brush all of the red first before we go on to the belly and such, because we want to make sure that we're not getting red onto that belly area. So we got bloody red here. Toss some of that in my palette. This is nice and dry now, this brush that I've been using. We're going to get that bloody red and we're going to wipe. For those of you that are new to dry brushing, you basically load your brush and then you're going to wipe most of it off on a paper towel so that you're hardly getting anything off that brush anymore. Then grab your mini and you are going to brush against the grain. What that means is if there is texture that is running up and down, you're going to want to brush side to side. If there is texture running side to side, you're going to want to brush over it up and down. And what that is going to do is it's going to pick up all of those fine details with the brush and provide a natural highlight over this awesome wash that you gave it. If you leave too much red on your brush, you end up with something called an overbrush, which is just a lot more paint than you want, and then you get streaks. So you want to make sure that you wipe off as much paint as you can off that brush. And this is just going to lighten the whole thing kind of right back up a bit. The question was what you use to paint the clear parts of the minis. Yes, I use inks. The way that inks differ from washes is washes are a bit more opaque, and they're, again, meant to add depth and shadow, and inks are used to kind of tone a surface. And so I actually use inks for all of the magical effects, anything that's that clear plastic texture, including the fire that this red dragon has, that it comes with, that you can add to it. We won't be doing that today. I don't know if we're going to have enough time to tackle the fire that comes out of its mouth, but that is what I would use. I would use an orange, probably, or a yellow ink with a red ink. That is the way that I would tackle it. Okay. It's pretty much the red dry brush done there on this dragon here. Then next I'm going to get Orange Fire. And that is another game color paint. Question, Jason, are you going to do some crafting videos in the future like the older YouTube vids? Dutchy, I would love to. There are a couple that are still in the hopper that I'd like to do. One of them being the table build. So this table I built, I actually want to release that again, much like the DM screen, which is one of our most popular videos. I'd like to release that soon. But yeah, crafting is definitely something I'd like to do more of in the future, and I'm planning on it for sure. I'm using this Orange Fire for a dry brush, but you can see right away it starts to really bring out the color on those highlights. And this is what we're going to use kind of for the final highlight on the red dragon. You can see the difference between the left wing and the right wing and what that's doing, but it's basically bringing out that color. We're using this instead of like pink or mixing with white, because then it'll look pink. We don't want that. We want it to look like fire and rage, and orange is the way to do that on red. And I'm focusing this mostly on the higher areas that would be touched by, got a little orange on my base here, that would be touched by the light the most. So, you know, make sure you get the claws, elbows, kind of pointy areas, tops of the ears, along the face, all of that, and you're going to get this really cool kind of effect. And we're going to dry brush right around the entire miniature with this Orange Fire. But again, you don't want to get it everywhere, because then it just looks kind of uniform, and you don't want that. You want it to be focused on the highest detail. Also remember that you are going to be doing the belly, so don't spend too much time down there. There we go. Do the inside of this wing. And I just needed a little bit of Orange Fire, and I pretty much got everything I needed. Like that. A little bit more. You know, Lord Ravenloft came on and said, "Oh, Red Dragon." That's exactly the response I would expect that we're doing that when we're while painting this. What are the top 2 flesh colors for undead creatures? Modius asks. That's a good question. Top 2 flesh colors. I usually use something pale, so like a pale flesh, or I'll use like the heavy skin tone and then add kind of a pale flesh dry brush. And then I'll use either, depending on what I want, as kind of a final kind of highlight, or sorry, final kind of look or tone, I will use either sepia wash or the flesh wash. You could also do like just a bleached bone, or sorry, a bone white, not bleached bone. Again, wrong paint line. A bone white if you want, and that will give you the look that you're probably going for. There. Okay, so that is that. So that is all of the scales are done. We have just under an hour left, and I think we're laughing. Question, what would you use to remove an old finish if you were wanting to repaint it from the plastic level again? Senzu effect, you can use something called Simple Green, I believe it's called. You can get it at a hardware store, although that's not essential, so it might be hard to find right now. But yeah, you want Simple Green, I think, is what it's called. It will strip the paint off of a plastic miniature, and then you'll have to re-prime it to start again if you want to start from scratch. Kieran Stryhard says, Do official gaming inks and paints actually work better than the craft paints from a non-gaming store? I still support my local brick and mortar stores. Yes, absolutely. They're formulated different consistencies, different. I would say longevity for those paints. These paints are very different. They're formulated very differently, in my opinion, from regular craft paints, and the difference is quite significant. So my answer to that question is yes, they are different. For sure, they're different. Okay, let's see here. I thought there was another question here that I missed. Is there an alternative to using inks? You can try washes, or you can create your own kind of glaze by watering down a paint color. So if you want a red wash, take red and then just dilute it until it's whatever. But it doesn't quite have the same consistency as an ink does. You won't necessarily get the same transparency that an ink does, and that's why they're formulated specifically for that purpose. That dragon is scary sounding. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with heavy ochre. And heavy ochre is going to be what we use for the belly scales as well as the horns, and some of the spikes and such. Oh, sorry. So I did not use black for the claws. I used the color combination that we're going to use now, which is this heavy ochre with a bone white and a sepia wash as we go. But anyways, so here we go. Start with the start with the horns. Oh, you know what? I don't even know if I used that on the old one. I don't think I did. To make them a little lighter, I didn't actually do that, but maybe I will this time. Yeah, I'll use it this time. So we're going to use heavy ochre on the horns. And the horns kind of resolve down further on the face. They kind of go over the eye here, so we're going to go ahead. And again, heavy ochre is an extra opaque color from Vallejo, which is designed to go on in one coat and works incredibly well. These are magical, these base paints, these extra opaques. Anybody in the chat who's used them can attest to their awesome coverage ability. I am off camera here, folks. I'm sorry. Made a little boo-boo. We're gonna get a dry brush here and just wipe it off. There we go. Awesome. There we go. We're going to get these horns, and then we're going to go ahead and get all the little spikes. The belly area is the largest area that we need to base coat in this color. Again, make sure to check us out on the socials. I post photos of the minis we paint after the fact on our Instagram, and it also goes on our Facebook, so you can catch us on all those on the big three: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at RealmSmith TV. Make sure that you follow us on those platforms. That's also, folks, where we'll do any announcements about upcoming streams, or anything that we're working on, or anything you guys need to know about, because it's hard to do that on Twitch unless you're actually doing a stream. So if there's any schedule changes or anything like that, we always do it on our socials. So be sure to check it out and follow to kind of keep up to speed with what is happening from RealmSmith. Okay, so there you go. I've got those kind of horns on the chin and the face. I also like to do these little two horns that are on the side of the face as well, kind of this color, to make them pop more. And what we're doing now is just really delineating the detail by adding some color to these horns, face horns. Face horns are great. I wish I had face horns. Maybe not. They're pretty badass. All right. Go, and then we'll do the whole belly here. Just making sure I'm not missing any questions. What level characters would survive when a young red dragon encounter? Good question. Let's find out. I think it's... What CR level is it? If anybody knows offhand, scream it out in chat, but I'm going to find out right now. Chromatics are first. A young red dragon, CR 10. So a party of 4 10th level fighters should be able to give a young red dragon a run for its money. That's the official word from the monster manual. Okay, so we're basically, like I said, going to go through with heavy ochre and cover all of these scales. Now, you can see that there are like wider scales here, and then there are smaller scales beside it. You want to hit the wider ones and leave the smaller ones. That's what I used as the delineation. You can choose something different, but that's what I like to use there. Again, we're just going through and base coating all of the scales on its belly now. And again, this also adds a lot of delineation for the miniature. I use that word delineation a lot. For those of you that have been around for a while, you'll know. Is like it's becoming a RealmSmith word. Delineation. Getting into my own world here a little bit. Thank you for the follow. That's one way to get me to look up. Always catches my eye. Jason, aren't you nervous you'll be harshing your books? Oh, yeah. I do. This table is full of paint. The book is full of paint. Not the best steward of that, but in my opinion, I think it just adds character. So yes, I have worried about it in the past. I've looked at pages and thought, man, that is a lot of paint specs in my monster manual. But anyways, it's just easier to have it at arm's reach, and I'm not too worried about it. And like I said, it just adds character. Question: so, do you decide to paint these off what the monster manual says, or do you wing it? Have you just painted them how you like? Tam Good asks. I'm a purist, so when I'm painting these, I tend to go right to the monster manual and find out what the color scheme is there. Sometimes, I want to, for whatever reason, divert a little bit from the color scheme, so, or add more colors or less colors depending on what the miniature calls for. But yeah, I like to paint them like they appear. I don't like to paint them all crazy colors or, kind of the what if sort of scenario. I actually like to paint them the way that they are in and appear in the monster manual entry if there is one. Personally, that's kind of my own take. In this case, I'm taking a little bit of liberty because the monster manual one actually is quite a bit different. But that is also an adult. It's not a young, and this is my idea of what a young red dragon might look like. I imagine as a red dragon gets older, that red kind of takes over its whole body till it's like this, like basically like glowing or completely red creature. Almost done the belly scales here. This is the last kind of area that takes the longest, is this belly. I mean, the coverage isn't even that great right now, but that's okay because we don't really necessarily need it to be. And I'm totally painting off camera still, aren't I? I'm sorry, folks. I apologize if that's the case. Getting lazy here. Losing myself in the paint job. Go. Now we gotta be careful here, looking at the tail, figuring out which scales are part of kind of the belly scales and which part is part of kind of its side. Again, it's actually a little easier on the tail because the long, wide scales resolve at these smaller scales, so you can see where the longer scales exist, and that is what I'm. And of all the dragons, this is one of the better ones for delineating exactly where tail is. Thank you for the follow. Now we're getting into fine territory here. Still using a number 2 for this. I just find using a larger brush most of the time, as long as I possibly can, helps me to get done faster, speeds up the process. A lot of people, when they're painting miniatures, just want to use a 0 brush, like a 1, very small brush for the whole mini, and you don't need to. It takes you way longer in that case when doing that. There we go. Tail is done on that side. I'm just going to finish on this side. And then just going to go through and finish all of the claws. Awesome. Okay. Now for all of the little claws all around the mini, we're going to do all of the ones on the wings, or spikes, not really claws, these are spikes, I'd say. I'd say claws are only on hands and feet, I imagine. Or in talons, or whatever you want to call them, but yeah, I'm gonna basically, anyone that looks like it's a spike that is growing out of an area. I'm going to use that heavy ochre on there. Getting there. I am finding working at home that my back has been much more kind of hurt and labored lately. So just make sure, folks, that if you are working from home, that you have good back support and a good spot at your desk to sit and work at, because it is doing a number on me. Okay, so those are all, well, not all of them, almost all the ones on the wings. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. We're good. Question: what would be a good reason to hunt down a young red dragon? Treasure. I mean that's or safety. So if it's attacking and terrorizing a city or village or a town, that would be a good reason. I mean that's kind of the ancient trope, right? It's maybe there's an item that the dragon has that you need, so you need to try and steal it away. Lots of little reasons in there. There are little spikes. So there's one here on its elbow here. There's also one, or two, I should say, on its elbow over here. That. And then claws on its hands and feet. So we're just going to go like this and just hit those real quick. Don't forget the thumb. And then what I'll do is I'll turn over the miniature. I'm way over here, folks. I'm sorry. I must have smacked my camera. Let me just get it in a better position so that I'm on camera more. Nothing worse than watching somebody film a tutorial and they're off camera most of the time. That's no fun. Apologize. Okay, so there we go. And then I'll turn the creature over and we'll do the back side of it. We're actually, the most time-consuming parts are actually behind us, which are usually the base coating bits. There. And we'll get the bits here on the back side of this dragon. There. Okay. There. That is base coated now. Yeah, these are synthetic brushes. I saw that question come through here. Amberblaze says, having not played since 3.5, if the Red Dragon has a horde, it's a triple average for a DC 10 average of 5,800 gold pieces for the encounter, times 3, 17,000 GP of value, keeping in mind magic items worth 1,000 to 10,000, minor and medium. That's a good reason. Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, magic items and wealth can be a good reason for a party to attack or try to hunt down a young red dragon for sure. Okay, so Now that that's done, I'm just going back to my reference on my old one that I did. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to mix a little bit of bone white in with some of that heavy ochre. Oh, I forgot the teeth, actually. That's okay, I'll just do the teeth in this color here, because they're supposed to be a bit brighter anyways. We want them to stand out. So I'm just mixing bone white, adding a touch of water to it. And I'm going to go ahead now and start to highlight some of these areas. I'm going to do the teeth real quick. Just running the edge of my brush along the teeth, like that, top and bottom. And then on this side as well. And along the bottom of these teeth as well. There. Like that. And then I'm going to use that mix to highlight all of those spikes and all of the kind of claws. What I'm doing is I'm using this mix to go from basically 2/3 of the way up the claw or object to add that highlight. And I'm also just going to overbrush using the side of my brush across the horns like that. Things are looking quite yellow on camera, actually. I'm not sure why, but maybe it's all of the red. But I will post photos of the finished red dragon. Actually, I think there are photos of the last one I did too, which follows the same color scheme as this. I'm using the side of my brush so that it doesn't go into the recesses to really add a cool highlight to these horns here. After this, we'll add a sepia wash. You can see how that's go. And again with this mix, kind of halfway up, or 2/3 of the way up each of the claws, like that. Then I'm also going to highlight each of these plates on its chest. So I'm going to go along the bottom here, and I'm just going to add kind of basically like, I don't know, halfway up, like so. And I'm just going to go along and highlight all of those with this mix. I'm going one side here. Basically like a 50-50 mix of the bone white and heavy ochre. Just highlighting these scales. And I'll finish this side and then I'll go over to the other side. Then once I'm done that, then we'll add a wash, and that will kind of bring it all down again in color, and then we'll do a finer highlight on them after that, and that's where kind of they really start to pop. Again, making sure to leave that heavy ochre in the recesses. A bit of an over paint there, a little bit of water and a brush I haven't used yet, and just wipe it right off. That's my magic eraser for paint. Unused brush. A little bit of water if you need to. And I'm diluting the mix just a touch so that it flows nice and easy and it blends well. There we go. It starts to get really fine kind of closer to the end here, so I'm just going to run the edge of my brush along that. Question, do you have a voice for this young red dragon? Young red dragons are probably pretty guttural. Sounds a little like Batman. Pray to me. Although I imagine a red dragon's kind of sadistic too a bit. Although that's more kind of a black dragon to me. But maybe a little. Because it's young. That's my on the spot red dragon, young red dragon voice. Okay. Alright, so that is the belly done like that. Gonna go through and just highlight all of these claws as mentioned before, hands and feet. Bruno the Tavern Dog is just upstairs barking up a storm, which he never used to do. He started being a barky dog just recently. If Hank's watching, I think he's picking it up from his buddy Hank. Maybe not. I'm sure Mel will be happy that I just blamed Hank for Bruno's barking. If she's watching. Take care, Spirit of Mystery. Thanks for hanging out. Okay. All right. So, I forgot the wing spikes. Same thing, just painting the 2/3 of these spikes with this mix. For some of the smaller areas, I tend to keep more bone white in there. Just because it'll show up better if I don't have the room to kind of like blend it in, or feather it in, I should say, like that. Now, before I did these, I should have done, I didn't think of that. Okay, I'll have to figure that out. I should have done the black kind of charring effect at the bottom of the wings. Remember that, folks, when you're doing yours. Because it's going to be easier to do that than what I'm doing here. For sure. Just make sure these teeth are really sticking out here. I don't even think I'm going to do a wash on the teeth because they're sticking out nicely. Okay. Next, because it's going to take some time to dry, I'm going to take my sepia shade, which is my favorite wash in the Vallejo line. It's kind of a warmer brown, yellowish tint, and I'm going to put that onto the belly here, and this is going to go into all the recesses and add some more shadow. I am diluting it just a touch because I don't want it to obscure too much, but you can see what it's doing already, pooling in those recesses and really giving it a good cool kind of patina. Don't even know if that's a word, but I know it's a word. I just don't know if it's the word I'm looking for. There we go. Man, that dragon is not happy. Okay. Get that wash on there, and then once that wash is on there and it's dry, I'm going to go back and do a final highlight on this. But there we go. I am going to take a little bit of sepia wash and just kind of like around the base of these horns, but I do not want to go up the horn because I want it to stay that kind of bright color that it currently is. So we're just going to use it in the base to give it some depth there. We're pretty close, folks. Let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and do that charred kind of color black. And for that, I'm going to use actual black. And I'm going to use a smaller dry brush. And I'm actually going to, that was a lot of black that came out of that bottle accidentally, but I'm going to, it's a bit of a dry brush, a bit of an overbrush. I don't want streaks, but basically what I'm going to do is just go like this across the entirety of the miniature and just blacken the bottom, being careful around the claws or the spikes. But this is going to give it that, just like it said in the monster manual, this like kind of charred edge to its wings, which is present in the monster manual art. You can see there. And then once this dries, it's going to look really super cool. Promise. So it's a bit of a you have to kind of play with it and see how wet you want this to be as you go, and how much of an overbrush versus a dry brush you want it to be. But it's easier to kind of build up rather than try and pull back, obviously, because you can always add paint. It's not always easy to take it away. There we go. You can see what I'm doing here. Did a bit much here. A bit too high on that side, I think. Yeah, too high. I'll just pull back on that. I'm getting a little overzealous with the color here. You know what? I'm going to use a larger brush because this is taking too much effort. And it's not as soft a brush as this one here. And I can just, there, that's better. Way better. And I'm just basically stippling it on and pulling it down to kind of blend it in here like that. Also going to do the underside as well. And remember, you're just focusing on close to the edge here, just close to the edge. It's giving it this kind of charred effect as described in the manual. That. Okay. And then we're also going to put it along the frill on its back. You can see how cool it looks on the inside of the wing there. Very cool. And like I said, along the frill as well. because that looks dope. That's right, folks, I just said dope. And then what I did on my other Dragon Mini, the prototype that I painted, I'm also going to give this one some stripes, because I think it looks really cool and very fierce if it's got some stripes running along its body. So, but first, let's just finish up this. You can see the frill area, what that's doing along its tail. It'll right down to the bottom there, like that. And then turn it over, and along the tail here as well. Again, it's kind of subtle, but once that dries, it'll look really cool. That wash is almost dry. But while that wash is still drying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to paint those kind of stripes that I was talking about. I get the feeling like they're along the neck here, and they kind of come from back here, and they kind of come across the neck. Have you considered going to gaming convention like Adepticon? I have, actually. Adepticon is something I've been interested in. Not a huge D&D presence there, but when I was into Worm Gaming, I thought about that. Question, did Bruno get his cone off? No, he doesn't have his cone off yet, but his eye is getting better. So for those of you that don't know, the tavern dog, my French bulldog, currently has a cone on his head because he scratched his cornea with something, I don't know what, but anyways, he's had a cone on for like 3 weeks, the poor guy. Maybe longer than that, actually, probably more like almost a month or over a month. So, but it's getting better and it's healing up, so hopefully Doggo will be okay soon, a bit back to his normal self. I feel so bad for the dude. But you can see what I'm doing there with those stripes. I think it makes it look fierce. We're going to do them across kind of the top there and across the arm. I imagine that these markings wouldn't be there in like an adult. I feel like an adult goes like pure red later in its life. And for these, I'm basically just like stippling them on, just so they don't look like just straight lines. I want to stipple them so they look kind of random and natural. And stipple, what I mean is you're just kind of like poking the paint on it, like that. Like that, yeah, there we go. Thicker in the middle. And then kind of thinner as they taper off. There. That. There. So that is all of the black kind of detail. Trying to get her done here for you folks, so you get kind of the basic. There, and that wash is pretty much dry, so now we can go ahead and do what we want to do right after I paint the eyes. In the mouth, what I like to do, we're not doing the flame effect here, but I've done lots of kind of magic effects. You can follow those sorts of those techniques that I've showed you before for a lot of that stuff. You can just go into turbo mode here, folks, so we can wrap this up. I'm going to paint orange fire into the eyes. Right into there like that. and into here. I imagine as a young dragon it would still have a pupil, but this area is very small, so we're just going to pretend like it's not pretend, but we're basically going to treat it like it's a adult dragon eye. I'm also going to paint some orange fire into the back of the mouth and kind of along the bottom of the mouth and the top here, just because it looks like it's about to let loose a gout of fire. And then we're going to take pale yellow. We're going to paint it right into the middle of that back of the mouth there. So again, it looks like that white hot gout of flame is about to come out. We're also going to paint just a little pinprick of, I got a rogue hair here on the end of my brush. There we go. Little pinprick of pale yellow into the middle of that eye, which will really bring it to life like that. Okay. And then finally, we are going to take bone white proper with our zero brush and do one final kind of highlight along the edge of these plates. Now what I'm doing is just a thin little line along all the plates on either side. I'm going to go side to side, and that will just make them really pop. One final kind of last time here. I wonder if you guys can hear Bruno through the mic. I think maybe he hears the dragon. Sometimes when I'm testing Sirenscape, he'll hear like birds or wolves in the background, like sounds, and totally like start to bark and howl as if there's a creature in the house. It's so funny. But yeah, that really brings out those plates. And again, folks, like less than with our announcements and stuff, I did this less than 2 hours. So don't be afraid to tackle that red dragon. And these are very simple. If you want to take your time, do an even better job than I did tonight. I'm trying to get her done, to get onto the table. And I've said it before so many times that, you know, with D&D minis, if it was a wargaming mini and I'm using the same army every time, or a player character mini, even better, and, you know, I'm playing it every game, that's one thing. You want to spend your time to really have a nice showcase piece on your table. When it comes to creatures like this, you know, this red dragon is probably going to show up on your table maybe like once or twice a year, if that, depending on what you're running, unless you're really mean to your players. And in that, or if it's a recurring character or something like that, I understand. But, you know, make sure that you spend the time on it that you get the value out of. And unless you just love painting minis and you want to paint it for a competition or something like that, then absolutely spend the time. I guess all I'm saying is it's better to kind of, you know, get a decent job within a couple hours and get painted minis on your table for your players than it is to worry about it and spend a ton of time and invest a ton of time on a piece that's only going to show up a certain amount of time. So, and I'm just going to use the edge of my brush here to catch the rest of those on the end, and a little bone white on some of the. I'm going to use again the edge of my brush just to catch the top of the horns here and the side, like that. Okay. Some bone white on the teeth to make them really pop. And then I'm going to use a little bit just on the tips of some of these claws. And that's pure bone white. And I did get some black on some of these up here, so I'm just going to go back and touch those up. folks, I think that's a wrap on the Young Red Dragon and episode 40 of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. It's crazy. It's been such an incredible week. I don't know which way I was trying to put that base in. It's been such an incredible week with last weekend's awesome sessions. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this miniature and I'm going to spray it with a matte varnish to really bring out, to seal it in so that when it goes on the table, my players are beating it up, that it's not going to lose its paint. But that is a wrap. Thank you so much, folks, for watching. Stay safe. Look out for each other. It's incredibly important at this time that we not, keep our head down, and not be aware of what's going on around us. I think it's very important to be as aware as possible of the people around us, make sure they're okay. Mental health is a real issue, especially during a time like this where there's a lot of isolation. So look out for each other, have fun. Tomorrow night, Tides of Wildmount premiere, our new campaign, which will go for 12 sessions in the season, every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the D&D Twitch and on the RealmSmith Twitch. You can catch us right back here. To get reminded of it and to know what else is going on, make sure that you follow and consider making us your Twitch Prime subscription on our channel and on the D&D as well. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have a wonderful night. I cannot wait for tomorrow. Gonna go get some rest, prep, everything else that I have to still prep for tomorrow, and we will see you on this table on the Menagerie Coast in Tides of Wildmount on tomorrow night. Be sure that you also, if you have time tonight or before tomorrow, watch at 7 p.m., which is in 6 minutes. We are airing the premiere of the prologue, including Matt Mercer and Matt Lillard, James Hake, B. Dave Walters, Nora Ibrahim, and Luke Gygax, with Joel and Brandon from RealmSmith in the prologue, which happened on Saturday. We're showing it on YouTube now. We're all going to be on there chatting ahead of tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Bye.